New Hampshire can put on a pretty good race. Who knew? Ryan Blaney goes to victory lane. Joey Logano dominated the day. Denny Hamlin spun out his teammate Ty Gibbs. Where was 2311 Racing at? Cody Ware tried to intentionally wreck somebody. That failed on his part. And Hendrick Motorsports, did they finally figure out their short track program? Welcome back to Break Hard. I'm Matt. Typically, lobsters need water. You and I know that they're a seagoing creature. But on Sunday in Victory Lane at New Hampshire, they become the prize. Do you think lobsters want to compete for this? Oh no, look at Larry. He's now the trophy, except Larry's probably going to become Ryan Blaney's dinner as well, because the driver that wins the race gets a lobster. They hold it up in Victory Lane, unless, of course, you're scared of it, like Denny Hamlin. Ryan Blaney, very much not scared of it, held up those big meaty claws, says he wants to do it for the next 30 years, and he was really strong on Sunday at New Hampshire. But before we get into the race recap, was this a good race? I'm going to give it an 81. I thoroughly enjoyed this race. By Gen 7 standards at New Hampshire, this was a very good race. 14 lead changes this year. Last year's race only had 6. So if your math was at home, this is double the amount of lead changes, which is really, really good. Last year's race did have some wet weather driving, of course, but this year's race was really enjoyable. You had multiple on-track green flag passes for the lead, something that on a flat track in the Gen 7 era isn't something that we can typically say. New Hampshire has multiple different lanes, which makes it really fun. Drivers can move around, they can search for different lines, and it allows for passing to happen. Combine that with a pretty good Goodyear tire that wore. You saw a lot of rubber buildup on the side of these cars. The tires wore out over the course of the run. That's good for everybody. That helps produce good racing, and this race was a good race. Ryan Blaney leads 116 of the 301 laps. His teammate Joey Logano led nearly half of them at 147. Their other, we'll just call him teammate, Josh Berry, because that's what he is, led 10 laps. And overall, these Penske cars dominated the day. If you were going into Phoenix this year, like this is the year that a Team Penske car isn't going to win the championship, at this point right now, I have bad news for you, because it very much looks like they are going to win the title once again on a flat track like New Hampshire. Similarities to Phoenix, they were incredibly strong. Joey Logano's lap in qualifying had everybody sitting back going, damn, that was fast. He did the tire test up there. You expected him to be fast. Ryan Blaney's long run speed was nearly untouchable. Josh Berry nearly spun and won, Danny Sullivan style, Lane Rigg style at Bristol last week. He spins out early on in this race, or stage number 2, when he makes contact with Shane Van Gisbergen, and then he drives back through the field, uses a little bit of strategy to help himself out there, and he goes on to finish second and nearly got him. He stayed out on old tires after that final pit stop. We'll get to that in a minute. Blaney obviously got right sides and was able to come through the field there, but early on in this race, Joey Logano jumped out to an early lead. Shane Van Gisbergen started 10th, drove all the way up to 6th, rode P5 for a minute, ended up finishing stage number 1 in P7. He's finally figuring out this oval thing here. Maybe it'll be working out for him. In stage number 1, though, we also had Austin Dillon. He tags Cody Ware, just sends him around. I think that was maybe just desperation. Didn't want to get put a lap down by Ryan Blaney at that point. Like, wasn't great. But overall, Blaney goes on to win stage number 1. SVG finishes 7th. Hey, he's got this thing figured out. Stage number 2. He figured out oval so much, he's also spinning people out. Now, Shane Van Gisbergen and Josh Berry make contact in turns 1 and 2 there. And ultimately, I think it was a racing incident. I don't really think the 8-8 pushed up. I think the 21 came down a little bit. They make contact. The 21 spins out there. An unfortunate situation because, it was, like I said, a racing incident. But yeah, you never want to see stuff like that happen. Stage number 2, though, did feature the talking point of the week, and that is Denny Hamlin spinning out his teammate, Ty Gibbs. On the lap prior, Denny Hamlin came over the radio and said, "What the F is this guy's problem?" referring to Ty Gibbs. Goes down into the next corner on the next lap and promptly dumps Ty Gibbs, sends him backwards into the wall. Ty Gibbs came over the radio and said, quote, "Game on." Well, he couldn't get his car fired because the master switch fell out of the dash, I guess is what he made it sound like. So he couldn't actually try to fire the car back up. Had to be towed back to pit road. He was confused by that. He wanted to push, and NASCAR hooked him up and towed him to the DVP area, even though he didn't really have any damage, just didn't have a switch to fire the car back up. We'll talk about more of that in a second. We also had another really dumb incident. Low percentage move, small brain move by Brad Keselowski. On the restart, he decides to go 4 or 5-ish wide down into turn 2. And on the exit of turn 2, if you run the apron right there, the inside wall gets really, really close. It's like North Wilkesboro, turn 1, when you could dive into it and you can get really close to that wall there. gets close to the wall like it's a street course, hits it, bounces off of it, goes up into Shane Van Gisbergen, collects Kyle Busch, Daniel Suarez. I believe Justin Haley got involved in that as well. Typical Boston driver move by Brad Keselowski. That's why he had the Boston Red Sox paint scheme on the card this week. That was just a dumb move. I think he's going to go back and look at that and probably be like, yeah, that was stupid. Probably shouldn't have done that. But he did it, and it caused a big wreck there as well. Lap 134, Kyle Larson goes the lead. He gets around. He takes the lead, rather. Ends up leading laps. This was the broadcast put up an interesting stat. New Hampshire is the track where he has led the least amount of laps at in his NASCAR Cup Series career, which is pretty interesting. 4 laps later, he promptly got passed by Joey Logano because, like I said, those Penske cars were insanely fast. John Hunter Nemechek backed it into the wall in this stage as well. Hard hit for that 42 car. Literally went up and off the ground. Thankfully, he was okay, but dang, that was a big hit for him. Stage number 3, Blaney, clearly the fastest car out there, gets around Logano on lap 228, and that was basically all she was going to write. Josh Berry, super fast as well, tracked those guys down, and if things play out differently for Berry, if he doesn't get spun out early in the race or doesn't spin out early in the race, maybe he has a really good shot of winning this, but that 21 car was bad fast on Sunday. Then we have the final pit cycle, what we thought was going to be the final pit cycle until Cody Ware decided to insert himself into the discussion here. Berry runs long. He comes out of the pits like 7 seconds back, but with those fresher tires, he starts to eat into the lead, and ultimately it wouldn't matter because Cody Ware, remember how I said earlier in the race that Austin Dillon tagged him, spun him out? Well, Cody Ware attempted to intentionally wreck Austin Dillon, very much made the move to do it, missed like he was Danica Patrick, and put himself into the wall, gave that 51 car a lot of front end damage. And as Landon Castle said, number 1 rule of stock car racing, if you're going to wreck somebody, don't wreck yourself. And Cody Ware did exactly that. Just a really baffling move by him. Tried to DeMarcus Ware Austin Dillon right into the wall and ended up Danica Patricking himself. Not things that you ever want to do there. Never go full Danica Patrick, whether it's on the racetrack or off the racetrack at this point as well. The crystals, just relax with the crystal situation. But Cody Ware, dumb move, nearly altered the finish of this race as well. And yeah, I can't imagine Team Penske would be very psyched about that. Josh Berry, Chase Elliott stay out on older tires. Blaney takes right sides. Blaney would end up getting around Berry and going on to win the race. Berry kept it close, though. He kind of reeled him back in a little bit, just couldn't get around him. The broadcast was like, I don't think that Team Penske would tell Josh Berry not to pass Ryan Blaney, since Blaney's in the championship still and Berry's not. Do we give them the benefit of the doubt? Team Penske and all the transgressions that they've had in recent years, you can go all the way back to Richmond 2013 still. And like, they were trying to fix races back then as well. Like, it's not out of the realm of possibilities that they told Josh Berry, hey, don't do that. But also at the end of the day, as Josh said in his post-race interview, he's not the type of driver that's going to go up there and wreck somebody for the win. Maybe not even lay a bumper to him for the most part, especially not a teammate like that. If he could have passed him cleanly, like, yeah, he's going to pass him. Guy only has 1 win in his career. He's going to want to get 2 wins. Like, obviously there, but Blaney ends up going on to win the race. Your top 10 is Ryan Blaney in first, Josh Berry second, William Byron in third. Those Hendrick cars seem to find some speed on Sunday. Joey Logano in fourth, Chase Elliott fifth, Christopher Bell in sixth, Kyle Larson seventh, Michael McDowell, really good run for he in that 71 Spire team, in eighth, Ross Chastain ninth, and Chase Briscoe rounds out your top 10. Carson Hocevar had a really good car all day. He scored 39 points on Sunday, which is really strong. Like, P5 Chase Elliott only scored 36. So Hocevar was good throughout the stages, good throughout the race, ends up finishing 11th. Denny Hamlin 12th. Austin Dillon, really good run for him, finishing 13th there. Your worst finishing playoff driver that is still alive, that would be Bubba Wallace in 26. We'll talk about more of that in a second. First, let's talk about the points, though. Ryan Blaney, he has advanced on to the round of 8. He doesn't have to go to the Roval in 2 weeks worrying about anything. Now, William Byron right now sitting plus 47. He's super comfortable. Kyle Larson plus 41 as well. Christopher Bell plus 29. Denny Hamlin plus 27. Joey Logano plus 24. That's terrifying for everybody else in the field. Because if he has just an okay Kansas and an okay Roval, there's a strong possibility that he's going to advance on. Chase Elliott plus 14, Chase Briscoe plus 12. Then we get into our cutoff. Ross Chastain, he has 12 below the cutoff line. Austin Cindric, 19 below. Tyler Reddick, 23 below. And Bubba Wallace, 27 below. Those 2311 cars just had nothing on Sunday. The exact opposite of Hendrick Motorsports. And honestly, I kind of expected the performance of those teams to be flip-flop there. Bubba Wallace qualified 14th. Tyler Reddick qualified 4th. Not a bad qualifying run. Sorry, we should note that Riley Herbst qualified 25th. He still finished better than Bubba Wallace, his teammate. But typically the Toyotas have been pretty strong at New Hampshire in recent years, and especially on flat tracks as well. Kind of expected that to carry over. That did not on Sunday. Tyler Reddick comes home 21st, Riley Herbst 22nd, and Bubba Wallace 26th. For as great as round one was for Bubba, and he was like plus 60-ish over the cutoff line after Bristol, and then the points reset, and he went back to being plus 1. He's now minus 27. Now, they're headed to Kansas. 2311 Racing traditionally has been good at Kansas, maybe has struggled a little bit over the last year, but then you have to go to the Roval. And right now for Bubba, like next week at Kansas, they got to have a really good race there. They had their bad race here. They got the one bad race that you're allowed to have around, essentially. Now you have to have 2 really good races, and the Roval sets up to be slightly chaotic. On the flip side of things, though, you have Hendrick Motorsports, who I expected to be cheeks for the most part here, right? Like, obviously, they were okay at Gateway, looked a lot better than they had been in the past, but in the Gen 7 era on flat tracks, they've struggled in a sense, and especially at a place like New Hampshire. It's a lot like Gateway, where they just never really seem to put that much emphasis on the race because, well, it wasn't going to really factor into the playoffs for them. Well, on Sunday, the Hendrick cars seem to have found something. Not Penske speed yet, but good enough for 3rd place with William Byron, 5th place for Chase Elliott, who started 27th and drove all the way up to 5th. That's a really good run from him. All the Chase sexuals out there that don't like Alan Gustafson is the reason why you finished 5th on Sunday. Kyle Larson started 16th. He finishes 7th, led some laps as well, only 4, but still laps led. And overall, they showed speed. Even Alex Bowman ran pretty well, qualified 7th, ends up finishing 15th. He ran top 10 for a decent portion of the day. And yeah, like I said, I thought the performances of 2311 Racing, Hendrick Motorsports would have been swapped there. But overall, Hendrick, maybe hit on something. We'll see if their cars advance on to Phoenix. But they have Kansas coming up, which we know Kyle Larson and company are very good at Kansas. Roval, we know they're good there as well. Hendrick Motorsports traditionally has been good there, especially with Larson and Chase Elliott. And then after that, you're going to have Las Vegas, Talladega, Martinsville, all tracks that they're very good at and have been in the past, but also Team Penske, very good there as well. So it's going to be a battle right now between, I think, Hendrick Motorsports at this point and Team Penske. You can maybe dabble a Christopher Bell in there at this point. But yeah, it is not wide open. I think there's certainly some favorites, but things shook out a little bit differently than I think most of us expected on Sunday. The big incident of the day, Denny Hamlin versus Ty Gibbs. So as we talked about before, on the radio, Denny Hamlin says, "What the F is wrong with this guy?" And then promptly wrecks his teammate, Ty Gibbs. They're racing for position at the time. Denny basically wanting Ty to give him the position to go on because Ty's not racing for a championship. Denny is racing for a championship. Now, at the same time, Ty's still racing for a race win. Ty's still racing to finish as good in the points as he can at this point. So I can understand the argument from both sides of this, but to wreck your teammate, that's going to be frowned upon for sure. Ty goes and backs it into the wall, comes over the radio and says, "Game on now." Now, is that a game on like a Hayden Deegan thing? Like, are you going to embarrass yourself and break your collarbone and do something stupid and then be like, "Oh, I'm the biggest, baddest guy out here"? I don't think so. I think Ty handled this pretty well, all things considered, after the race, because when they asked him about it after he got out of the Infield Care Center, he was like, "I'm really excited to get to Kansas. We should have a strong car there." Like, just very much Marshawn Lynch, I'm here so I don't get fined type of thing. And after the race, they talked to Joe Gibbs, or at least Bob Pockris and some of the other print media did at the track. And Joe said, "Hey, I'm going to let the drivers settle this," which is an absolutely mind-boggling decision. I am baffled by that one. It's like listening to a flat earther try to tell you that the earth is in fact not round. You're like, okay, I'm not sure we're on the same page here, bud, because letting your drivers decide this, being teammates, doesn't really make a lot of sense, especially when one of them is still racing for the championship. Now, I am interested if the roles were reversed here. If it was Ty that dumped Denny, would Joe have that same reaction of being like, "We're going to let the driver settle this. If Denny wants to go out and junk Ty, he can go ahead and do it"? I don't think we're going to get the same thing here. And Denny kind of alluded to this over the radio where he says, are they afraid to talk to him? Basically, is the 54 team, Joe Gibbs Racing, are they afraid to talk to Ty Gibbs? Like, are they scared of him? And yeah, I think the response from Joe is kind of telling there as well. It will be interesting to see how Ty Gibbs races Denny Hamlin when they're around each other once again, because it appears that it's gloves off. It appears that Joe Gibbs Racing in the front office and the brass over there, the brain trust that is Joe Gibbs Racing, is just going to let this happen. And however it happens, which is a choice, because you could potentially be sacrificing one of your better championship contenders. Now, obviously, they have Christopher Bell, they have Chase Briscoe still, but Denny Hamlin's been seeking this championship for 20 years now and hasn't gotten it. At the same time, do you want to risk him not advancing onto the Final Four, which is good for the company because your grandson wants to settle a score here? I'm not going to tell anybody how to do their business, but I am going to tell them how to do their business here. I think it would be really stupid to have Ty go out there and try to junk the 11 car. I think that would be incredibly dumb. But having said that, go ahead and do it, because it is going to give everybody on the internet something to talk about for an entire week now. And Ty Gibbs already hated. Denny Hamlin's already hated. The fan base, I honestly don't know how the fan base is going to react to this if it does in fact happen, because whose side are they going to be on? Seemingly the majority of the fan base hates Denny Hamlin. The overwhelming majority of the fan base hates Ty Gibbs, except for like the people that run that Team 54 account and a couple of other random people I see at the racetrack with Ty Gibbs stuff on. He certainly doesn't have the following that others do in the sport. Denny, obviously, there's a number of reasons why fans don't like him, for a litany of reasons. I'm interested to see what side people pick on. I think people would probably side with Denny Hamlin in this situation, because, Silver Spoon, Ty Gibbs, everything like that. But yeah, it would certainly be interesting. So overall, I enjoyed New Hampshire. I thought this was actually a pretty good race, all things considered here. Decent passing. Penske car is incredibly fast. I think we learned a lot, though, coming out of this, especially with Phoenix in mind, and as we head to even Martinsville at that. Next week, we're in Kansas. 1.5 miles should be a pretty good show there. Hopefully, the temperatures are down. That's going to certainly help things, I think, if they are. And then after that, we head to the Roval, which who knows how that's going to play out. Could be chaos, could be boring. I feel like it's kind of like Baku in Formula One. It's either you expect the unexpected or it's just very uneventful and somebody dominates the day, and that's that. So excited for the rest of round 2 here. Glad that New Hampshire delivered for sure, but let me know in the comments what you thought about the race. What number would you give it in the rating? Whose side are you on in the Denny Hamlin Ty Gibbs dispute? And Cody Ware, yeah, that was really dumb. I also had a joke teed up on Twitter, written out, and I looked at it and I said, nope, we're not going to do it. Hilarious, but we're not going to do it. So I didn't do it, because I'm an adult and make adult decisions sometimes. So let me know in the comments what you think about everything that happened on Sunday. Like and subscribe to the channel. Follow me on TikTok at BreakHard, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at BreakHardBlog.